All right, EntreArchitect community, it's 4 p.m. Eastern, which means it's time for the EntreArchitect Context and Clarity live conversation for Thursday, December 8th, 2022. Thanks for joining us today. As you get here, say hi, let us know that you're here, and let us know where here is for you, both the platform that you're on and where are you. I see Scott's in San Francisco and Chucktown Sean is in the house. So do what they did. Let us know that you're here and let us know where here is for you, where you're joining the conversation from. If we've never met before, my name is Jeff. I'm in Indianapolis, and I come here every weekday afternoon at 4 p.m. Eastern for one reason, so that we can find clarity around the things that matter most to you, the architect. It doesn't matter if you're the employee of a firm or you own your own firm. Maybe you circle a date on the calendar. Maybe that date's December 31st. You say, hey, that's my launching pad. 2023 is my year. And you're on
Ooh.
that runway. You're getting ready to launch at the beginning of 2023. Or maybe you have owned your own firm for a year or 6 years or 29 years, and you're starting to rethink or reimagine what that firm could or maybe even should be. All of the topics that we cover, one topic every day, they all fall under the broad umbrella of the business of architecture, and they're all the need to know topics for the success of entrepreneur architects just like you. So thanks for joining us today. Let's see who's in the room. Let's see who's in the house today. As usual, for these conversations, I am joined by my co-host, Katharine MacPhail.
Oh,
Hi,
hello.
Katharine.
Hello. I thought we were
Where's
going to review who got the bathtub.
well,
Where's
we'll
what?
get it. We'll get to that. Where's
Oh.
here for you, Katharine?
Well, I am in. Thanks for asking, Jeff. I am in Fairhaven, Massachusetts.
Fairhaven, Massachusetts. Have you ever thought
hmm
about where that name came from?
I think it's a Native American word.
Fairhaven?
Massachusetts also was
Okay.
a Native American word, but Fairhaven,
Okay.
I'm guessing that it was a haven. That was
And it
pretty.
was fair. It's
I
such
think
a
it was
fair
pretty.
haven.
I think that's where that came from.
Okay.
They're
All right.
very inventive. They were very inventive. Either it was English name, Native American word, or place name, or a description.
All right. Well,
Like High Rock Street or Fairhaven.
okay.
Anyway, yeah.
Very, very good. Fair haven. That fair haven over there.
hmm
Scott says howdy. He's from way over there. He's in San Francisco. He's the first in the room today, which means that he is the winner of today's John Kinney Memorial Crocheted Bathtub Award. So thanks for joining us today, Scott, and welcome. Glad you're here. Congrats. Chucktown Sean, he says number one with a bang, but I see Scott on the screen first, so I don't know.
I see.
Yeah.
I see Sean first.
Oh, do you really? Okay. Well, then we're
Well,
gonna
let's
give
see.
it to
Let's see.
Sean. We'll ask
Chris
the
is
judges. It's a photo finish.
Chris is giving a little history of the origin of my town.
Okay.
Would
Well,
you like
that's
me to
good.
read that for you? So,
Somebody's fast on the Google. Yeah.
all right.
Let's have it.
Fairhaven was first settled in 1659 as Cushnea, the easternmost part of the town of Dartmouth, which is named after a place in England. It was founded on land purchased by English settlers at the Plymouth colony from the Wampanoag Sachem Massasoit and his son Wamsuda. I can't pronounce that guy's name.
See, I can tell
Wamsuda.
where the
Wamsuda.
strange Massachusetts dialects come from now. There's
From
a lot of
the
words.
Wampanoag. Yeah, a
Yeah.
lot of words.
Yeah.
I just thought you'd have a little trouble with some of those words, so I read it for you.
Oh yeah, yeah, and I can't pronounce them in Massachusettsese either. So thank you for doing that.
Yes, you're welcome.
John Jones says buongiorno from Westport, Connecticut. Welcome back, John. Right across the street from Starbucks. And Tim Dearborn is back from his walk in Stockton, California. Chris, of course, joined us from Massachusetts. And Mark R. LePage says, hello, my name is Mark. Welcome, Mark, from Waxhaw, North Carolina. And everybody else, welcome. Glad that you're here. See some coming in from LinkedIn and some from Facebook, which reminds me that if you're in a Facebook group right now and you're commenting away and you go, hey, why does my comment about where my relatives are from not show up like Scott's about Plymouth? It's because you are in a closed Facebook group and you got to give Facebook permission to talk
Yeah.
to Restream, which is the platform here. So there's a URL in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen right now, chat.restream.io/FB, like Facebook. Open up another browser window. If you don't, you'll lose this. But open up another browser window, type chat.restream.io/FB, like Facebook, and a couple of clicks later, all of your problems will be solved.
First
Not just your
base
communication,
instead of
all of them.
Facebook.
All of them.
Yeah, I was wrong earlier, and Scott was first, and not Sean. I thought Sean was first.
All right. Well, the judges have spoken. Sorry, Sean.
Sorry.
No crocheted bathtub to take back to Chucktown today, but we're glad you're here anyway. I'm glad you almost won. I see Sarah Collada. Hi, Sarah. She says, "Hey, Jamie." She just gave it away. We haven't even talked about who's in the green room right now. Sarah Collada has ruined it all. Thanks, Sarah. Good to see you. From wherever you are in Europe today, I assume. And Barry Reed, good evening to you in Scotland. Glad to have you here this evening as well. I want to know what you're drinking over there in Scotland today. That's my big question. All right. We've wasted a whole lot of time. It's not a waste.
Yeah. Only 8 minutes, 7 minutes.
We've had a whole lot of fun. But it's time to bring a guest out because this is an interesting day. Back in the green room, for years we stocked the green room with green M&Ms, green peanut M&Ms. And we have changed that recently. And today the green room is stocked with gummy bears and passion fruit LaCroix. I don't know about that combination personally. I'm not vouching for it.
I think it'd be great.
Okay. Well,
the gummy bears will go well with the drink.
Okay. It's well paired, I guess.
Yes, well paired.
We'll have to ask our guest about that. So what's your favorite gummy bear? And pairing that with the passion fruit. They all taste like plastic, don't they?
Yeah. They're just chewy. Chewy, sugary thing.
Okay. And they're not chocolate, so I'm out. Our guest today is a founder, a negotiator, and a strategist. She's an experienced leader in guiding architecture, engineering, and planning firms through all the stages of their business journey. She's the founder of the platform Elevate Her and the director of advisory services at Zweig Group. Jamie Claire Kiser, welcome to Context and Clarity Live.
Hello, great to be here.
Hi.
It's great to have you here. Okay, Sarah Collada, there's Jamie. You can say hi now. Actually, great to have both of you joining us, and thank you for joining us, Jamie Claire from Arkansas today. Maybe we'll get a bless your heart as we go here.
Arkansas.
Which is, if you haven't listened to Jamie Claire's conversation with Randy Wilburn on the Zweig Letter podcast, I posted that earlier today. It's a fantastic conversation. It's about M&A in the future of M&A, I think is the title, in the AEC world. So maybe the place that we need to start this conversation is, what does M&A mean?
Oh, I was just thinking that, although I figured it out.
Well, it's a great question, but I'm concerned now that if people hear the answer, they may leave because it'll be a lot more boring than whatever they may have thought it was. So, mergers and acquisitions. So it's a company, joining another company. It's that simple. An external ownership transition. Fastest way to explain it.
Yeah, I love that, and I don't think they're going to leave. First of all, we've hooked them with gummy bears and LaCroix, so they're not going anywhere. But all week, we were talking before we went live. All week, we've been talking about some form of ownership transition, and so we started out Monday talking about partnerships, and then Tuesday talking about what would it take for you to sell your firm or buy a firm, I think. And yesterday, I think we talked about selling your firm. So we've been touching on different aspects of this all week, and this is something that every time we have someone on that has shared their story of their succession plan or a franchise model or something like that, we get into these ownership transition type topics. There's inevitably somebody that says, "Hey, we should talk about mergers and acquisitions." So we're here for that today. And one of the things that I'm curious about is, I think back to the early 90s when I came out of school up until today. And I remember early in my career, and maybe it was just my lack of awareness, but I don't remember a whole lot of M&A, mergers and acquisitions, going on. I seem to sense that they've heated up over the last handful of years. And I suspect that they're really going to heat up as we go forward from 2022 and beyond. But can you kind of walk us through what that world is like and sort of just a short history of where it is and where it's going?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're exactly right. We are in a massive consolidation phase within the industry. There's been a lot of activity of firms coming together and moving forward. We're at year over year record transactional activity. So buying, selling, merging, just anything other than an internal ownership transition. And we're projecting that to occur at least again for the next year. What's interesting is that the year over year kind of record breaking numbers are primarily like the E and the C within AEC. Architecture got kind of hit early and hard through COVID. And so some of those transactions that people may have contemplated, they maybe did not move forward with. So it's largely come out of E and C, and we're expecting A to pick up the pace as we've seen the last few months, and we're expecting that to continue in the next year.
So, as you said, when you're talking about the mergers and acquisitions, oftentimes that's an external comes from the outside, but obviously there's internal transitions as well. Do you see more internal transitions in the world of in the world of architecture than you do external, or is it just sort of a function of the time?
It's really more of a function of the time, more of a pause in an activity. In a negotiated transaction, there's a look back that determines the value. So if you had a tough year due to COVID, you may want to wait a year or two before moving forward. So we think that's really what's driving the, people hitting pause on the A side and architecture side until there was a bit more of a recovery. But we don't think it's indicative of like a permanent, disinterest in external ownership transition.
Yeah. What when we look at the future, and I look at this all the time and I go, wow, it's a lot of these firms are owned by people that oftentimes look a lot like me, usually slightly older than I am. So you've got boomers owning some percentage of firms, and Gen X like myself owning some firms. So is it do generational shifts like we're in now with 4 different generations in the workplace, are generational shifts changing or driving this ownership transition, or are there other factors at play?
That's really, I mean, there's a lot of other outside factors, but the primary factor, and most importantly, the primary factor that's in control of anybody who owns a firm, is kind of thinking about what the demographics of your ownership need to look like. But according to our last year's ownership survey of the entire industry, only 4% of firm ownership is held by people that are 40 or younger. 4%. Yes,
That's
4 that are age 40 or younger. So we've got a huge concentration of ownership held by people that are, I think, like 80% of owners of any interest in any firm are 55 or older. So there's a huge need to figure out how to get through that big concentration of ownership, and not a lot of multi-generational ownership teams reflected. So yes, that is going to continue to drive that.
Yeah. Wow. So your role in all of this at Zweig Group is what?
So we're your advisors on transactions on buy side, sell side. We also help with internal ownership transitions and strategy and evaluation, kind of long-term planning about what that ownership transition strategy should be. For us, it's ideal when we work with a firm when they're 3 or 5 years out from being ready to make that big leap, because we want people to have all the options possible. I spend most of my time in mergers and acquisitions. That's really what my expertise is. But in our advisory, the luxury of time, is one that you can't get cheap, right? Like we can't help with that part, unfortunately.
I think that's I think that's a great point. When you're looking at 3 to 5 years, what if there's somebody in the audience right now that's saying, hey, I want to, I'm trying to figure out what my exit plan is, or my session plan is, or whatever they're calling it. When you said 3 to 5 years, when do they really need to start thinking about what, from my point of view, what do you really want to get out of this? What do you really want to do, even before they reach out to Jamie Claire, or they reach out to some somebody to help them with this. Is there a line or a date that they should circle on the calendar and work backwards and say, hey, you need to plan for, get your head in the game within 5 years, or is it something different?
It is and this is not the answer people want to hear. It's day one when you become an owner. Even at Zweig Group, I used to be the youngest principal. Actually, I don't even know if I still am, but we've already started thinking about what our next ownership transition needs to look like, and brought in principals at lower concentrations as well. It's a constant. We call it like a friendly Ponzi scheme. You just have to keep on feeding it, though. An ownership transition is dynamic, and it's leadership transition. Whether you're thinking internal or external, it's really about just thinking about what your staffing leverage needs to look like. I mean, what do we need in different tiers in the organization? What can you do to make it so that you're redundant in any of the things that you do, creating opportunities for people? It's not different internal or external, really. Fundamentally, it's running a sound business. And when we have the luxury of time, we can figure out how to, clean up the things we need to clean up to pursue external. But the reality is it's just making good business decisions. So you're able to decide your own destiny in that regard.
Yeah. Yeah. Katharine, I interrupted you a minute ago. Sorry about that.
Oh, well, I was interrupting you though. So anyway, one question people had was like, how do you find somebody who is interested in selling or buying? So would that be something that they would contact someone like you for, to figure out if there's anybody they've heard of? We were wondering, how do you even go about, if I want to buy somebody, do I just go up to them? Nicole said, yes, I should go directly up to her, but I don't know, if I don't know them, how do I know that they are interested?
Yeah, it's a lot like dating in that regard, right? You can wink at them from across. No,
well, that could be the way it goes. Well, we need to know.
Architecture firms walk into a
whatever
bar.
works.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
Right.
We like keep a database of firms that have shared what their kind of criteria is and what they're looking for, but ultimately it's really about understanding sort of like the anchors, like what are the most important strategic goals of a couple of different parties, and who needs to talk to who. When we do the work in this kind of capacity, we have, a gigantic kind of like CRM and database with tons of firms in it. But we also do a lot of research, just because it looks a certain way, right? Due to the research, yeah, exactly. Swipe right. Yes, somebody needs to make that app.
I think that would be great.
I don't actually know. I was married before those. Yeah,
I don't know which way you go, but you reject them in one.
Exactly. That's exactly
I was on Bumble BFF for a couple weeks, and I couldn't remember which way I was supposed to go. So that was really stressful, and I would swipe the wrong way, like I wasn't interested, and swipe, for the friend thing. Anyway, so yeah, we don't know, but someone should make that app.
They should. That would be a really interesting app.
Well, you have all the data. Maybe you should make the app.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I think I'm going to stick to the M&A business, but that's
Well, what was there's an AI that was just released this week at Chat GPX or something like that, and it'll write code. So somebody at Zweig could probably have that app launched by the end of the day using that, from what I've seen on TikTok. So,
wow.
If I saw it on
they're
TikTok,
probably a lot younger and have a lot fewer, wrinkles and migraines. So
they might. Yeah. You said something a minute ago that I think is really interesting and probably overlooked a lot, because I think when we talk about this, oftentimes we're thinking about money. Yesterday, when we were talking about what would it take to sell your firm, several people said, hey, I would want to find somebody that would take care of my clients as well as I take care of my clients. And I know, in listening to your conversation with Randy on the Zweig Letter podcast, that a lot of what you talked about there too was yes, there's the money involved, certainly, and time involved, but we're talking about people, and we're talking about talent strategy, I think is how you said it at one point. What does that mean in terms of, or in the context, I guess, of small firms? That could be anywhere from, we've got a lot of solo practitioners here, maybe 1 to 10 people, if that's where we want to, put the bumpers on small firms. So what does all this mean in terms of small firms?
Well, specifically related to talent strategy.
Yeah, I think talent strategy, but then obviously beyond that as well.
Well, I mean, just a lot of I mean, you're right. Like the drivers are almost never purely financial. Sometimes that's really what's driving it, and no fault or blame. And I just want to say that you, as a business owner, you build something of value, and fundamentally, like the business that we are in, it says the work that we do is valuable. Every hour that we charge is valuable. There is inherent value to what we do, and I just don't think that it's like a problem to talk in those terms. There's nothing wrong with that being the goal. However, it is almost never, what somebody is really looking for, and certainly not what they're looking for in a transaction partner. You do all this and build it, and you want the best for your people, for your
Mhm.
clients. And sometimes the motivation is to join a firm because they've got or perceived that they have, extra capacity and resources to help. Unfortunately, y'all, spoiler alert, everybody's crazy busy. There aren't a lot of people that just have folks sitting around. If they do that, they probably aren't in a position to acquire because they've got people that aren't busy sitting around. But just like the resources and economies of scale is also a huge driver too. Just the
Yeah.
benefits, the training. I mean, just the things that come with, not reinventing the wheel, joining a firm that already has the ability to help you execute kind of what your highest and best use and strategy is. That's a huge part of really what drives the combinations that we see. Definitely legacy and client service, and it's a lot more than just the numbers.
Yeah. What you just now you mentioned, people being really busy, and that's one of the things as I've seen as I've watched firms around. I know there was a firm here in Indianapolis where I am. I think in the past year or so, as COVID time flies, but they acquired a structural engineer, so an architecture firm acquired a structural engineering firm down, I think, in Louisville, Kentucky. But the minute I saw that, I went, "Yeah, I know exactly what's going on there." That's definitely about a marketplace, but probably even more so having those services in house. So, what are some what are some of the most common strategies and reasons, I guess, for looking either to acquire somebody or to merge with somebody?
Wow, there's a lot there.
Yeah.
Some of the most common reasons, definitely, a market play like that. Do we need to get into a new
Mhm.
service discipline, location? Just are we trying to expand what we're doing, take a bigger share of what we do, get in earlier in the client relationship or project cycle so that we know what's coming right before maybe where we traditionally sit in kind of the prime sub role, having a little bit more like command over pricing from that perspective, bringing more expertise in house, being able to offer more things, to the existing client base that you serve. These things are all like huge motivators. Capacity is definitely one, but again, so is value driving. Just doing things that make a company more valuable and successful. That talent acquisition, though, really can't go understated. It is really tough to find those mid-career folks, and often finding a firm through acquisition where you can gain additional resources. It is something that people will pursue in addition to or instead of or kind of in tandem with a recruiting strategy, and especially for
Mhm.
very small firms, right? Like it's mass onboarding, it's mass recruiting also, but it's mass
Yeah.
onboarding. So instead of bringing people in one at a time into the culture and into the firm, there's a lot to be said for bringing in people that know how to work with each other. I
Yeah.
don't know if you know this, but we're all idiosyncratic and crazy, and
Mm.
and
We
Got
all
no
are. I
idea.
didn't know we all were.
I mean, present company excluded, of course, but
Yeah.
other people are very. There is something to be said for that, like it's something that's already kind of up and running, right? And being able to slowly kind of bring things together over time versus expecting everyone to hit the ground running in day one. So,
Yeah.
and I guess one other thing I will mention too is there's a bit of like, I don't know, swagger to being a firm that can talk about growing and can really talk about, we're growing through expansion. People want to join us. We're able to like command kind of being a leader in that regard. And so there's kind of a lot of pride in being a firm that's a good acquirer too.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. And I think, I was at a conference recently talking to a firm leader that I've been friends with for a while, and he was talking about um, uh, basically the difficulty in recruiting, the difficulty in finding people, down to the point of maybe just having to hire warm bodies, which you know, I guess I get that, but to your point, and having the people that can hit the ground running and that cultural fit and everything else is obviously a better play.
Yeah. And so I would say that's answering Barry's question about why would you do that instead of just expanding it. And we also had a question this morning about if you had $200,000, why not just put that into your company instead of trying to buy another company? I don't know, 200,000 probably isn't enough. But anyway. So that makes sense. But how?
Well, let's ask the question, Jamie Claire. If you had 200,000, if you were a small firm and you had 200 or whatever is an appropriate number, would that? And this is going to be an "it depends" answer, I'm sure. But is it better utilized expanding, right? Expanding in terms, I guess, of hiring. I guess is the point. Is that the point, Katharine?
I guess, yeah. I mean, you could just
Yeah.
expand your own
Versus
firm instead of buying someone
buying
else.
another
Yeah.
small firm.
Right.
Well, it is expanding your own firm to buy a small firm. I think
True.
it's like,
That
I
is
mean,
true.
in
in
this case,
terms
though,
of
you get
like,
additional
one
market
person
reach
at a
and
time.
brand, and yeah. I mean, bringing in another firm that has its own reputation, right, and legacy, and kind of not even like book of business, thinking of it that way, but also just perception in the market. Exposing kind of your brand and their brand, and creating that Venn diagram of where can we play together and leverage kind of the best of both, and collaborate and figure out how to be better together.
Yeah. I like Jing's comment here. She tells a little story about a firm that she used to work for. She says that there's a large firm that she used to work for that did a lot of acquisitions by collaborating with smaller firms for a couple of years first to make sure that it was a good fit for both sides. Do you see a lot of that?
Yeah, we do. We do see a lot of that, and it's kind of a try before you buy strategy. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it prolongs kind of a never-ending engagement and can create a little bit also of when are we getting to the altar kind of challenges. But yeah, it can absolutely be a strategy that works to see how you actually are able to work together. Totally.
Yeah.
Rod would buy my business for 200,000. So that's that. Okay, Rod, we'll talk later about that. How about tomorrow? So, Yoko, is this question here about how do you get ready to sell? Right, because we were talking about. Wrong question. That's also a good question. Are we talking about Yoko's question here? This one? You don't know yet. Sorry, I'm usually really good at this. Okay. All right. No. Jeff, are you pushing things while I'm trying to push things? Can't hear you anymore.
Well, I guess should I just start talking since I can't hear anybody?
Oh, what? Can you hear me?
I can.
Oh, well, we just can't hear Jeff. Jeff, we can't hear you. So I think Jeff was pushing stuff while I was pushing stuff, because sometimes he does that. So so Yoko's question was basically, we were talking about how do you get your firm ready to be desirably acquired? You know what I mean? Like, what would you have to do to put systems in place to be something that someone would want to buy?
The most important thing that you can do is to have really good financial statements that are high quality. Invest in CPA reviewed, compiled, audited if you can. I mean, just really get your house in order and make sure that you're able to stand behind the numbers that are out there. The number of transactions that I've worked on that are, where balance sheets don't, it's a challenge. But really just like conduct yourself as a professional business and make sure that you've cleaned up things that need to be cleaned up. If you have WIP that's multiple years old and you are not able to bill it, perhaps it's time to consider writing it off. Really think about how your business practices, I guess, will, even beyond like just a number and evaluation, it's the trust that you know how to run a good business. And that's really a lot of what you're selling in a smaller firm transaction. So the first thing I would say to do is go back and clean up your financials and make sure that you've got really good quality numbers that make sense. And they're able to respond to basic questions about how your business operates. So we're not talking about your practice at that point. We're talking about your business, and just making sure that that's something that you're able to stand behind. So getting experts to help with that, for sure.
That's kind of interesting that you're separating business from practice. So could you say a little bit more about that?
I'm talking to architects, so
no, I know,
bless
but
your heart. Yeah, here's your bless your hearts.
There you go. We can bless our hearts. So, So what do you think the difference is between? I mean, I know that there is a difference, but how would you define that? those two
Well,
categories?
I think that a lot of the time, when you go to sell a business, it's really about what is moving forward. What is the going concern, right? That is really what you're selling. You're selling a business that is a going concern. So what does that need to look like? So there's people, there's processes, there's operations. The talent is one thing, and that's really important. But and that honestly, that what that can do is help justify like a higher figure, but it's still based on that same like foundation of solid numbers. And if the numbers do not make sense, and we're more kind of I don't know, not talking about ourselves as a business, then we're really reducing our ability to be competitive on the market. So
Yeah.
that's just that's important to think about.
Okay, so there was another question this morning from what are the aspects that build the value of a sole practitioner's firm? Is that, I mean, that's just not even a small firm. That's like a single
One person.
person.
So the reality is, if you're a one person firm, then we're talking about a strategic hire. Your
Mm,
entity may end up, there can be a co-branding, and I guess it's important to point out that the branding and the legal form of transaction can have absolutely nothing to do with each other. I'm a lawyer, so all the answers to everything there, it depends. Like that comes with the territory, but but a merger is truly just a structure where two entities combine equity and a third new entity is formed. It is a legal form of transaction.
mm,
uh, M&A is almost never mergers. However, when you read about press releases, announcements, people use the word merger a lot because it sounds friendlier.
mm.
It's like a
Yeah.
euphemism. And acquisition is when one company acquires the interest or the assets of another company, and the first one ceases to exist. Winds up in the future. I say that
Mm,
because it kind of goes to the point of the branding piece and the way that we position on the market being one whole set of strategies that's really unrelated to like the transactional form. And
mm,
that really goes to kind of the point of, if you're a solo practitioner, you have a business that is you. Ultimately, the business is not worth a
right.
lot without you there, generally. So it's much more of a strategic hire, usually with a great incentive program and some way to wind up sort of the operations before. But um, does that answer the question?
Yeah, yeah. I'm just wondering if you were like, let's say I am a sole practitioner. So let's say I want to be strategically hired. Do I put myself out there like I want to be strategically hired, or do I just apply for you know what I mean? How, or does that only come from the opposite direction? Like someone would come to me and say, I'd like to hire you and absorb your firm. Like I can't just go to interview somewhere, say, absorb my firm. That would just, you know what I mean? As a sole, I understand small firms, but it must be different for people who don't have anything else.
Yeah, I mean that really is. I guess I would suggest the latter then, in saying going to those interviews and applying as though you're applying for a job and saying I've also got this book of business I'm bringing with me. That it is a strategic hire,
Yeah.
and again,
Okay.
the compensation can be different, but yeah.
Okay.
What if, can you hear me now? Sorry.
I can hear you now, Jeff.
Okay. Thank you. Um, so if I were a sole practitioner and, I'm 50 years old and I say, hey, maybe by the time I'm 60, right? We're getting into exit plan. Obviously, we didn't do it right. We didn't consider this from day one. But I'm 50. I'm a sole practitioner. By the time I'm 60, I want to go do whatever people do when they retire. Um, what should I do strategically if I think that is somehow building up some sort of value to sell? Is that hiring employees, or how do I package something as a sole practitioner that does become attractive beyond the strategic hire? Does it get bigger? How do we do that?
Yeah, that's what it would be, right? Build a business, right? Not a individual kind of practice. So you've got to
Yeah,
build a business that, again, the going concern piece, that it can exist without the owner. That's really, what else is there that can make the company run.
right.
So if you really do have that 10-year window, then bringing people in and trying to stratify some of that ownership, so those individuals they're able to stay with that business post closing. That's probably the best thing you can do.
Is that transition most often done internally at that point?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
The other thing to keep in mind too, that a lot of people don't really consider, is that the transaction isn't the end, and that is, it is
Yeah.
a real shame when folks don't think about sort of what the whole M&A cycle looks like, and they come to us and say, I'm ready to retire yesterday. We need to figure something out, and I have the I'm great at disappointing people. It's like one of my best skills, and so I get to tell them that it's unrealistic to expect that you can just be done on day one without a massive hit to value. I mean, you have to usually agree to some kind of a transition period, and the longer you have to facilitate that transition, generally that'll be dollar for dollar translated into value. That's a really important piece. So start way before you're ready.
Like how many years? You mean like 5 years before you're ready, sort of thing?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, everybody needs a superpower, so luckily you're self-aware enough to know what your superpower is.
Disappointing people.
I can disappoint anyone anytime. Don't you worry.
So how much money do you need to? What if you want to acquire a firm and you don't have that much extra money? Is there any way to do that? Can you take out loans for that kind of thing, or do you need money?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess I'll answer this in two ways. First, yeah, it's absolutely possible to acquire a company and to bring in a business without having, a significant kind of just cash reserve sitting there. There are absolutely loan programs. The SBA has a couple of programs, the 504 and the 7A programs are specifically geared towards facilitating ownership transition and kind of buying into businesses. So there are programs out there that do help with this. I will say that a challenge that a lot of people don't really think about is the working capital constraints. So even if you're able to, bring a firm in and facilitate a transaction that's largely reliant on kind of seller financing, there's still that working capital piece. Bringing in 5 people and trying to make sure that we can make payroll and pay rent it's a bigger challenge, I think, than a lot of first-time buyers are really budgeting for. Just what will this do to our overall operation?
Yeah, I think that's a good point, right? We're not looking for 1 + 1 = 2. We need 1 + 1 = 5 or 10 or something like that, right? In order to really make it make sense. Gene has a good question or a good comment here about good clientele methodology and process. Are those good candidates as acquisitions and strategic hires?
Absolutely, yes. And I will also just say articulable expertise. And I know sometimes the smaller firms and especially solo practitioners really try to market and position, that they can take on a lot of different types of projects. But expertise is very valuable, and I would just encourage people to keep that in mind too. That I've literally never had somebody call me and say, "Hey, I'm looking for a firm. I don't care what they do." I mean, there's a strategy that acquisition is in pursuit of, right? So being able to explain what your real skill set is and where you can play, that translates to value for sure. So that is a great list. I agree with that. I would just add that little piece to it.
Yeah, that's what when I get on a roll on sort of the branding side of it. That's one of the things that it happens all the time. It happens all the time with small firms, especially solo firms. We're going to be architectural generalists. So yeah, that's fantastic. I get that, right? I remember I remember architecture school better now that I'm teaching than I did before I started teaching, but I get that desire to be, we can solve all problems. But the thing is, there has never been a client, there is not a client, there never will be a client that comes to you and says, dear architectural generalist, I generally want you to do something, right?
Yes.
So yeah, specialty and expertise go a long way. Yoko had a good question that you may have talked about already, but when I couldn't hear what was going on. But did you talk about a firm that, let me just put it up on the screen. Did you talk about this question already? The firm that wants to be acquired.
Yeah, we did. Yes.
Okay. All right. Good. Sorry, I couldn't. I was muted there for a while.
Yeah.
So as we think about, so go ahead.
Yeah, we didn't.
You want to pop it up there?
No, I said we didn't talk about the other one that I kept put by mistake, which now if one's making. Yeah, this is the one that wouldn't go away last time. I don't know what to say. Hide the show. Is it not coming up? Oh, you guys are not. I'm. Okay. Am I back?
I can hear you.
Can you hear me? but Jeff can't hear me, or I can't hear Jeff. This is are we on yachts today, Jeff? Are you on a yacht, or are you in Indiana?
Yeah, you guys are doing some Arkansas internet here.
Question: if one is interested in making a small firm acquisition, how much should one budget for legal and advisory fees for that process?
It depends. I'm sorry, I'm obligated. No, it depends on the size of the transaction, the form of the transaction. These deals do not need to be crazy complicated, but they really can be. You could budget somewhere between like 5% and 20% of the overall kind of consideration. 20% would be for a massively complicated, went out of your way to make it more difficult. Which certain clients have been known to do. One of the attorneys that I work with a lot on transactions said that the answer to that question is really how difficult will you be to work with? So they charge hourly. So how much of my time do you intend on taking? No, I'm sorry, I'm being flippant, but yeah, something like that is really what I would say to budget for. If I could though, I would just add, rather than thinking about, like, when a lot of firms go through this for the first time, they want to really price shop and get the most inexpensive hourly rate. And I will tell you, the most important member of your deal team is not the advisor. It's not me. It's not it's somebody who does what I do. It is your attorney, and you need to spend the money to get an attorney who is an M&A attorney, a transactional attorney who specializes in our bizarre little industry. It is the most expensive by the hour. It will be the most efficient though overall deal process, and it will protect you from the most risk. And just that's the plug I'll make. Get people who know our industry and who know how to do transactional work.
Good one.
Yeah. Yep. Can you hear me now? Okay. I think that's a really good point. And when one question that I think you and Randy addressed this on the Zweig Letter podcast, but in a way you sort of danced around it. But it's one of the things that has always amazed me is, why would somebody want to acquire a professional services firm? Now, one firm to another, architecture firm, structural firm, or architecture firm. Okay. But are there other people in the arena as private equity coming in, or tech companies? Are we seeing any combination with technology that's becoming more and more a part of what firms use, at least?
Yep, there goes Jeff again.
But I heard enough of the question that sure. Yes, we're absolutely seeing an influx of private equity financing entering the space. At the size that we're, that very small size, not as much. But there's a difference in the private equity play between a platform, it's called, and a bolt-on. So there may not be the direct investment from private equity, but as a firm that's already been recapitalized and had an investment, and private equity can also be like family offices. You mean financial buyers in general, I presume. So people that are like truly making investors that aren't in the design space. But yes, that has been a play, and where a smaller firm can sit would be generally in the add-on. But I will also just say though that it's tough for really small firms to be considered by financial buyers, and it's not because they don't like us or have anything negative about smaller firms. It's simply because they have fixed transactional costs on their side in order to satisfy the requirements of their investors. So the due diligence that they're required to invest in, it's usually not worth it if it's not like of a certain size. There's some efficiency there. So
that may be along the lines of what Jing is asking here. Is it true that 10 million annual is minimal for a PE
what is
investment?
A PE investment? What does that mean?
I assume she's talking about engineering.
No, private equity.
Private,
yeah.
Makes sense.
No, there's not. I mean, again, there's not like a minimum. It depends on really what the attributes of the firm are and what they're able to do. But probably I would say it'd be extremely unlikely for a direct investment from private equity to be in anything less than that, and net service revenue, not gross revenue. But again, with the bolt-on strategy, that's probably more likely where a firm of that size would play.
Yeah. So when we think about small firms and looking out there, I don't think there's anybody in the room that's getting any younger, but I might be wrong. um, when we're all looking out towards our future, what?
Yeah.
Is he
Don't know
messing
what
with
you're
us?
gonna
Does he
say.
do this every time? Is this
I
just
have
like
to read his lips. Yeah, it's just well, while we have to come back. Oh, are you there?
How about now? How
So
about now? Can you hear me?
yeah. Luckily,
Nope.
Claire did not you. Yes, you know.
Can you hear me now? No. Yes. Okay.
Yes.
yes, yes.
Just irregardless, which I don't think is even a word, of what
Mhm.
we've done before this date, as we look out into the future, um, I assume that the first thing we really have to do is say, hey, where do I want to go with this, and what do I want to get out of this? In terms of an exit strategy or something like that. But beyond that, I think maybe just in terms of business fundamentals, what do you recommend that small firm owners, solo or otherwise, what they really concentrate on as being the thing that's going to bring them the most value? Maybe even just operationally, but what do we really need to shore up right now?
Well, like in addition to the kind of financial piece too, and making sure that the numbers are good, and that we have we're able to kind of explain the business model and really speak to the aspects of the financials, and with confidence. I think having a really strong second tier of management is very important. If that's something that you're able to do, bring people in early, start educating them on what it takes to run a good business. Make it so you're not the only, even if you're the only owner, that you're not the only person who knows that we're a business. I mean, it is so surprising to me how reticent firms are to share anything related to anything other than design with people that work for a company that happens to do, work in AEC. I mean, really bring people in and get them thinking about business early on. That's probably the other best thing I would say to do. So getting the financial kind of house in order, but then building like that management tier out, and making sure we're continuing to bring people in and to grow them and their careers over time, so the business doesn't rely solely on one person or two people. That gives you, as the owner, the flexibility to have more control over your destiny post closing. If you're a founder, it is incredibly difficult to stomach working for somebody, and that is something that's really hard. And there's a lot of firms that I've worked with that didn't put their ownership transition plan into place and thought, I just won't do that and I'll sell. And then they get kind of closer and they realize that after, years of controlling their destiny completely and their day and not having to do a timesheet, now they've got a boss with a boss and a boss's boss and boss. And that's a very tough thing to just get comfortable with. But that's the reality of when you sell. You have to, go back to being an employee, which means you also aren't going to make the same compensation. You've traded the risk for the reward. You cashed out, and now you're, doing something else. Those are the things I guess I would just say to really think about. I don't know if that helps.
Yeah, that would be hard. I was just talking about that today with someone about how I kind of was looking for a job. Then I realized I can't really go work for anybody else because it's just not going to work out for that person who's supposed to be my new boss. So that's fine. But so we're just taking a poll of people who, you're not an architect. So did you ever want to be an architect?
No, absolutely not.
There you go. All right.
Bless your
We were
heart.
saying that everybody says they want to be an architect, but not everybody. So we found someone who doesn't want to be an architect. So.
No, but you know what? I was a real sicko. I grew up wanting to be a tax lawyer. So like, who wanted to do
You
that?
would
Yeah.
Wow, tax lawyer. I can see
Yeah,
that though.
right. Yeah. Some people know how to dream.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that's why I went to architecture school. And that my dad wasn't a tax lawyer, but he was an accountant. And I looked at that and I went, yeah, nah. What's the opposite of that?
Yeah, that's
Yeah. Jean
Wow.
says most of us are unemployable after years of owning our own businesses. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
I think that's right. I'm not housebroken anymore, right? How could I possibly come in and
Yeah. Oh, like taking a nap in the middle of the day. I like doing that.
There is a lot, though. I mean, there's a lot to be said, though, for that power of that legacy and that transition. I know I'm describing kind of going back to being an employee, but if you got to just work in like your highest and best use and get out of all of the other things that you have to do, and just running the business and the headaches, and especially in smaller firms where you did not go to school to, handle payroll and insurance, enrollment and all of the things that are just headaches, right? And multi-state, tax like issues and just the things that you have to do when you run a business. If you could get rid of all of that and just do what you want to do, and especially when you're at a point in your career where that can be mentoring like the next generation, there's a lot of like very rich, rewarding opportunity for somebody for this to be kind of their exit ramp. So I don't want to make it's not all bad, and it's certainly not mostly bad. This work wouldn't be fun at all, if it was just harvesting all the money and getting out as fast as you can. Like there's something cool to be said for that legacy kind of being preserved and having a really cool off ramp that gets you to can do the stuff you love to do.
Yeah, I can see that. Jeff, are you there? No? All right. So people are asking who your favorite architect is, and it's not really fair because we didn't have any money riding on it, but okay, well, I'll just ask a question. Who is your favorite architect?
All of my clients that are architects are my favorite.
Of course. See, that's a good answer. Good answer. Good answer. So I won that one. Thank you, Jamie Claire. I won that. We were actually, because everybody, we seem to have guests on here who mentioned Frank Lloyd Wright, and I said you weren't going to mention him at all, and you didn't.
No,
even though,
but Marlon Blackwell is from my small town in Arkansas, so that counts, right?
Well, there you go. No, this is not a really important question. It's just a question like, why is it Kansas and then Arkansas? Do you know?
I don't.
Why is it pronounced Kansas, not Arkansas, or?
Well,
like
the thing
Arkansas
is, with people from Arkansas, we're not that good at reading, so it's probably more that is probably the answer for real. Yeah. But I don't know the actual answer.
I don't either. Okay, so that was another important question I've always wondered, and I thought maybe you'd know because you're from Arkansas. Oh, now Jeff is gone. Well, what's going on over there, Jeff? We still can't hear you. All right. Mark wants to know, what's the most interesting acquisition story you have? Do you have?
Okay, so my love of like drama and reality television is absolutely satisfied by working in mergers and acquisitions. You have no idea the crazy things that I've seen, but I will keep it short.
Okay.
One of the like cool stories that we've gotten to see is helping a firm that, I don't know, they're maybe a third the size of the firm that acquires them, maybe smaller, maybe a quarter the size. And there was huge concern about their kind of overhead staff, non-billable staff, and what their role would be post-closing. And fast forward to about a year post-closing, and there was an opportunity for somebody who was a controller in the small firm to become the CFO of a firm that at that time, now they were about 8 times the size. They've done a couple of other acquisitions too. The career growth trajectory is like that. That's really what gets, like, that's so cool to me, to see people that are so talented and get to take the talent that they have. I know it's a story about a financial person, but I could repeat that story over and over again with, talented designers and people that lead teams and studios, and just watching their careers continue to grow is the coolest part of what, getting to track their success over time. That's the most fun.
Yeah. Is there any is there ever any drama?
Oh, there's so much drama. One of the things that happens in my world, especially when we're representing sellers, they don't want other people in their firm to even know that they're on the market, of course, right? So the deal team is often just the one person, just the one owner, myself. I don't know if this is something that I should, like, I don't know, look into tea leaves about or whatever, but I've had 3 or so clients pass away in the process. And if I don't, in those cases, I did not have another point of contact. I didn't know who I was.
Whoa,
and
really?
I'm out here. Yeah, I'm trying to get this deal to closing. And they don't know who I am or what I'm doing, or it's a very interesting situation. So
whoa, so they just don't call you back, and then you kind of dig into a little more, and then you find out they have passed away?
Well, I tell clients, like, if I seem really clingy, it's because I just wanted, like, just proof of life. That's all I'm looking for. Like, just a thumbs up if you're still there.
Wow. Yeah. I guess maybe they're more likely to be doing that in what you're doing for them because they're older.
It's cases where people, they're quite,
And architects don't get a lot of sleep, so we die kind of younger than most other people.
Well, that's
my theory.
Occupational hazard.
It is, yeah, it is. Well, Jeff, it's 5:00, and it looks like he's trying to get back in, but I don't know if he is. Well, let me see. Did I have any other questions for you? What's a company worth? So, I mean, well, everything's frozen on your end. Well,
Well, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, that is like the absolute worst question to ask where it's time. That's like the most complicated question that that could be asked. Your company is worth, so you can get a valuation. You can go through a lot, and we do valuations. It's great to have a good baseline. But if you go through M&A, what you should hear is that your company is worth what somebody will pay you for it.
Well, yeah.
And part of that, but part of that is what you will agree to do in order to hit that number. That goes back to the discussion earlier about your employment agreement post closing, what that looks like what you're willing to sacrifice in terms of your time and freedom for upfront versus being part of it over time. But there's a direct trade-off in what something is worth, and really what the luxury of time that we have is.
Okay, so someone had said something. They looked on a website this morning, which I guess is probably not the most accurate thing, but they said it was like 4 times the the income for the year of a firm. Is that
So
remotely
yeah, I
true?
mean, just to give numbers, so like a 3.5 to 5 times EBITDA, earnings for interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization, is like the rule of thumb for smaller firms. I would say that 4 to 4.5 times is about the right way to think about it.
Okay. I don't think anybody would pay me that much for my company, though. So it doesn't count if you're just a person.
This
Except
is
for
this is for a company. Yeah.
Yeah. So Chris says it would make a great team workshop. I mean, it's a great workshop for our next annual meeting. It's true. Well, all right. Well, Jeff, I can't hear you, so I'm just going to say goodbye because it's 5:00, and I'm sure you have some clients to get in touch with. Jamie Claire, make sure they're alive and your deals are still going.
That's exactly what I'll be doing. Yes.
Thanks for joining
you all so
us
much
today.
for having me. This has been such a cool, engaged group. Thank you all so much for participating, and I mean, just following the chat's just been so fun. And yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, it was fun. And there's Mark just put up the link to more information about what you do. So there it is.
Yeah, I probably should have done that. Thank you, Mark.
I should have done that. Well, thanks. I guess I'm just going to say goodbye for everybody, and I could do Jeff's post amble, but I'm not going to because I don't. Oh, there you are, Jeff. I can hear you.
It's working on. Sorry, it's just randomly in and out at this point. But yeah, Jamie, thank you very much for the super interesting, as I knew it would be. And I know everybody's gotten a lot out of this. As Chris said, it'd be a great workshop for our conference next year, the EntreArchitect Community Annual Meeting, which will probably come up. I can't say when it might come up. We're already targeting a date, but we've got to get venues planned. But it'd be fantastic to have this conversation then. For all of you out there, again, I say this every week, but thank you. Thanks for making context and clarity a thing, because if it weren't for that, we wouldn't be having this conversation with Jamie Claire. So thank you for this opportunity. We're 651 or 2 conversations in at this point, and I appreciate every one of those. So thank all of you for that. Looking forward to next week in Context and Clarity Live. It'll actually be our final Context and Clarity Live for 2022. It'll be Emily Grandstaff Rice, the president-elect of AIA National. So we're going to talk with Emily next Thursday, same bat time, same bat channel, 4 p.m. Eastern, all the places that we stream to. And I'll post more about that Saturday morning. Until then, please take care of yourself. Be well. Stay safe. Keep those around you safe and well. Take a little bit of time to breathe, relax, find some way to rejuvenate. We do this every day, so you've got to pace yourself. It's a long journey. Thanks for going along it with us, and we'll see you tomorrow, everybody.
Bye.